Okay, this is Trek doing the relaxation protocol. She's going to do something she finds very difficult. I have the piano sitting right here, and she's very noise sensitive. And she's also very sensitive to whenever I sit at the piano. So as soon as I sit down at the piano, which I am, she comes off. But she also realizes that there's a mat there. I'm going to try and see what works. I'm also wondering why I'm talking. Good girl. Good girl. I'm going to give her a treat for that. So I'm going to sit back down. She comes back off again. I do nothing. She looks at me. She goes back to the mat. And kind of woofs at me to say, do something. So now, I'm going to come over here, and we're going to play one of the very high notes. Good girl. Okay, have a goodie. So sit back down. Once again, she comes back off. Looks at me, goes back to the mat. So let's try this again. We're doing the high notes because they don't boom very much. Good girl. Good puppy. As soon as I take a step towards the bench, I haven't even sat on the bench here. She comes back off. And I'll sit down. Try a few other things. She goes back on the mat. Good girl. This time I'm just going to give her a goodie. Just be sort of random. Without even playing anything. So back at the bench. I sit down. She comes back off. She goes back on. Good girl. So I'm going to make a little bit more noise here. The piano. And I'm doing the high notes because they don't have a really booming feel. It seems to be the booming sounds that you can feel that she's afraid of. Now I'm going to back to the bench. She comes with me. And she goes back to the mat. And of course she yells at me. That's typical. She's trying various things, saying, how about this? How about this? How about this? Make a little bit more noise. I'm going to move down a little bit in the register. Ah, see, that had a little bit more of a ring to it, and so she came back off. And she's over here. So that's where I know my limit is. Now she's trying to figure out how do I cope? Because she is afraid. She's trying to leave, but she knows that the reward is over at that mat. Good girl. So I reward her for that. Back to the bench. Comes off. You can tell she's stressed, but she wants a goodie. Good girl. I'll reward that. I wish I could play the piano from here. Go back. She comes off, thinks about it, wants to leave. Now I could just give her a break, but she's pretty food driven, so she's just here. So I'm going to make a little higher noise again. So it's right around the highest E and higher. That's an F. I didn't reward her fast enough. That was my mistake, because I was busy talking. Yes. And I only reward her when she's down. Comes back off. Thinks about it, goes back on. I'll make a little more music. Yes. And okay, that'll do. Good girl. Take a break. Good girl.